The Ghost of Fossil Glen, Chapter 21. After school, Allie waved goodbye to Dub, who was riding his bike to an appointment at the orthodontist office. Karen and Pam walked off together, pointedly ignoring Allie. Allie stood for a moment outside the building, thinking. Her mind wasn't on Karen and Pam, however, but on Lucy. Allie's parents were both at work and Michael was at the babysitter's, so there was no reason to go straight home. Dub was right. She had things to do. Resolutely, she pulled up the hood of her rain parka and headed over to Fossil Glen. The day's downpour had slowed to a cold, soggy drizzle as she walked across the meadow. The sky was such a low, dark gray that it felt much later than 3:30 in the afternoon. Wispy fog floated over the tall grass of the meadow and hovered above the deep ravine of the glen, obscuring the edge of the cliffs. Trees seemed to rise eerily out of the mist, only to disappear again in the murky dimness. See how the author creates a setting that goes with what's going on? It's foggy, it's misty, it's eerie. The trees are rising eerily out of the mist. That's how an author can create a mood, a feeling inside. Allie wasn't sure she should go to the glen, but she felt drawn to the scene of Lucy's death. She held the vague hope that being at the very place where Lucy had plunged off the cliff would provide a clue or help her know what to do next. And she admitted to herself she hoped that Lucy would appear or speak to her again. Allie stopped near the cliff's edge, or at least what she sensed was the edge. So it's so foggy she can't even tell where the edge is. The whole world seemed to be made of the same gray, swirling mist. It made her feel oddly off balance and unreal. She stood peering down. Occasional breaks in the fog allowed her glimpses of the rushing waters of Fossil Creek below. This was the spot where Lucy had stood right before she fell. Allie pictured Lucy growing too warm in her blue sweatshirt, pulling it over her head and setting it down on the path, along with the fossils she had found. What happened next? Suddenly it seemed to Allie that she was back in her horrible nightmare, the one in which she had felt hands tightening around her neck, the one in which she'd been falling and falling and falling. Once more the tumbling girl became, not Allie, but Lucy. Allie felt a strange, menacing presence nearby, but couldn't dispel the vision filling her brain. She cringed as the plunging figure reached the ground. This is what she's imagining. Then the scene in her mind grew darker, as if evening had become true night. Someone was holding the dead girl by the arms, dragging her roughly upstream, grunting with effort. Allie could make out only his shadowy figure and the sounds of his struggle, which was made more difficult by something he held in his hand. A noise behind her broke the spell of her horrifying vision. She turned and peered through the mist. She could see no more than a few feet in any direction, except when the fog whirled in the wind and opened like a curtain. Ooh, that's a beautiful simile. It opened like a curtain, allowing her a momentary glimpse through the trees. She saw no one, but there was the sound once more, soft and furtive, like a muffled footstep, and again closer this time. The sensation of a menacing presence that she had felt in the dream was with her, only it was real now. Someone was on the cliff path with her. For a moment she stood frozen, heart fluttering in her throat, eyes wide, trying desperately to see through the haze. She dreaded hearing the next step, but one part of her mind was waiting for it so she could figure out where it was coming from and run the other way. There, the snap of a twig and the faint swish of a branch snagging on cloth. Up the path to the right, very close. Why, she wondered wildly, would someone approach with such stealth and caution? Perhaps she tried to tell herself the person was lost in the fog and frightened. Should she call out and announce herself? No, it was Lucy's voice. Run, fast! Panic-stricken now, Allie turned and fled down the narrow path to the left. She wanted only to escape to put distance between herself and those creepy footsteps. Holding her hands out in front of her to help feel her way, she ran stumbling down the wet, slippery trail, twigs snagging her jeans and whipped her face as she raced blindly forward. The sound of her own flight so loud in her ears that she had no idea whether or not she was being followed. She was far too frightened to stop and find out. At last she came to a place where the fog had lifted slightly and she could see the meadow open before her. The ghostly shapes of the school's playground equipment appeared out of the murk. With her breath ripping raggedly from her throat, she ran toward the sliding board in the swing set in the jungle gym. Tears streamed from her eyes, so glad she was to see those familiar objects, looking safe and normal in their usual places. Only when she was on the high street sidewalk did she stop and look behind her. She saw nothing but the school grounds and the meadow and the monstrous shape of the bulldozer, rising from the low-lying fog like a prehistoric creature. There's another simile. But Allie knew that someone was there, just beyond her vision, hidden by the mist and the trees. Hugging her rain parka tight to her shivering body, she ran home and locked the doors behind her. Ooh. Who do you think that was in the woods there, watching her?